Hello bookworms, I'm Becca, and today I'm coming at you with my March wrap-up. In the month of March, I read 7 books. I have all of my books right here. I read 2 young adult books, 4 middle grade books, and 1 adult thriller. So let's get into it. The first book I'm talking to you about is Rick by Alex Gino. I received this from the publisher in exchange for a review, and that review is up on my channel, so I'll leave that linked so that you can go hear more of my thoughts. But basically, Rick is a middle grade book. It is a companion to the author's debut book, George, in which we follow a trans girl named Melissa who wants to be the lead in her school play Charlotte's Web so that everyone can finally see her for who she is. Now in Rick, we're following one of the side characters from that same story. So we get to see Melissa and other characters from George, which was really fun. And Rick centers around Rick, of course. He's starting out middle school and he has to deal with a new school, outgrowing some of his old friends, and to top it all off, he is grappling with his sexuality. This book touches on asexuality, which was really nice, and there were some lovely discussions about the use of pronouns, especially they/them pronouns. This book was fantastic. If you want to see more of my thoughts and feelings about it, go watch my review, but I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars. I loved it. Next, I am talking about Let's Talk About Love by Claire Kahn. This is a young adult book about a girl named Alice who is, well, I guess it's like young adult, new adult, because she's in college, kind of. Our main character sees herself as asexual, but she's very much in the closet, except to a few of her very close friends, and she's had a hard time with relationships in the past because she doesn't feel comfortable disclosing the fact that she's asexual. So after a recent breakup, she ends up meeting this guy who has her questioning everything. So she starts going to therapy and she's just trying to kind of work out her feelings for this guy that she met because she thinks that she's attracted to him, but she knows that she's asexual. I think the main thing that I didn't love about this book is that she's so set on the fact that, like, she is asexual, so she can't have these feelings, so something is wrong with her. I wish it was more of an interpretation of how fluid things can be, because I do feel like Alice was very stuck in what she thought she had to be instead of trying to be like her own person. There was a lot going on in this book. I ended up giving it 3 stars on Goodreads, but I would probably actually make it more like 2.5 stars because I just felt like there was too much going on in the story. She had the relationship drama, and then she had friend drama, and then she had like work and school drama and family drama. Like, it was just a lot. And then she was like going to therapy. I felt like I was constantly being pulled in all of these different directions. And if the story would have focused on like 1 or 2 of these, I feel like it would have been a pretty decent story. And it's not that long either. 277 pages. So all of that was happening in that short amount of time. And I don't feel like it got tied up very well. Like, I had maybe 10 or less pages left. And it was just like a short conversation with this person. Okay, now that's resolved. Now she comes over here and has like a 2-second conversation with this person, and now that's resolved. And I didn't like that. Like, I wanted to see more of how the story was going to play out. There was just too much. And I feel like the relationships that were in the book, like, they were trying to make it seem like she had a really strong friend group. She had 2 friends that were a guy and a girl, and they were actually engaged. For the most of the book, Alice felt like she was the third wheel of that friend group. And they portrayed Alice as very like soft-spoken at times, and her friend was very like brash. But I feel like her friend bordered on the point of manipulative. There were several times throughout the book where she made Alice feel like she was a burden to her. And even when Alice voiced very valid opinions, she would like smack her down and always made Alice feel like she was playing the victim. And I don't think that she was. Like, I think that all of the concerns that Alice was having were very valid to her, and the relationships were really toxic, and I did not like that at all. It bothered me a lot. The parts that I did like was the way that the character described asexuality for her. I felt like it gave pretty decent representation, but I would have liked to see better for her, and I would have liked to see her work through those issues a little bit more. Yeah, I didn't love this one. I just didn't. The next book I read was Monday's Not Coming by Tiffany D. Jackson. This is a young adult. It's marketed as like a thriller, but I honestly think that it could be more of a dark contemporary. It's a very gripping and gritty story about a girl that comes back from being away for the summer to discover that her best friend is missing, but nobody seems to care except for her until a year later. The timeline in this book gets pretty jumbled, so I think that's where like the thrillery aspect comes in. But at the end of the day, this book was phenomenal. It was incredibly hard-hitting. It's definitely not for the faint of heart. There are major, major, major content warnings for abuse, among other things. This book was one of the darkest books that I think I have read in a long time. You're not going to forget these characters. That's what I'm going to say. You're not going to forget the story. The ending is going to just like rip you apart and not put you back together. I'm not okay after reading this book. The storytelling is very compelling, and even though I had a hard time piecing together the actual timeline of events, I still was engaged from start to finish. I grew very attached to the characters. I wanted to know what was going to happen at the end of all of this. Even though you get a pretty good feel for what the outcome is going to be, like they don't leave you hanging until the end, that's for sure. You kind of know, but you just don't know like how or why or like what actually happened. So I loved this book, as horrifying as it was to read. It was very, very good. I wish that more people were talking about this book because the story is really important, and I don't think that people want to realize that things like this happen. Like, for real. If you've read the book, then you know what I mean. I did end up giving this book 4 stars because I feel like the timeline was like really confusing for me to put together, and that just kind of kept pulling me out of the story a little bit, but other than that, it was amazing. So please read this book. Please. Which brings us to The Girl in 6E by A.R. Torr. This is the adult thriller that I read this month, and we focus on a girl named Deanna, but she goes by Jessica because she works as a cam girl, and her online presence is Jessica Riley. So Deanna has suffered from homicidal ideations for years, so she decides that it's in the best interest of everybody if she just isolates herself in her apartment. So she's been living completely isolated for years and years. It talks about her day-to-day life, her issues that she has, and the different clients that she has as she works for a cam girl. This book is incredibly sexually explicit, which is my number one con with this book. It was not my cup of tea. It was very, very graphic sexually, and I didn't love that. There's also some trigger warnings for like violence and gore, obviously, because she has these homicidal fantasies. But basically what ends up happening is a young girl, like a child, goes missing, and she believes that one of her clients is behind it. And that is just as icky as you want to believe, because yep, that's exactly what is going on. So she kind of sets out to find this girl and ultimately the guy. So it is like, that part was kind of interesting. I wish it would have been more of that and less about her like day-to-day life. And then the one thing that I found interesting is that she had all of these like fantasies, but when it came time to do anything, she quickly realized that she was like mediocre at best. And I just thought that that was like really bizarre. Like there was just so much about this story. I would read a scene and be like, what in the world just happened? Like I'm not sure what exactly I just read, but that's a thing that's in my mind now. I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. It is the first one in a series, or at least a duology. I don't know if I'm going to continue on with it. If you have read both of these books, let me know down below in the comments if you think I should continue on with it, because I feel like the way that the story ended off, I don't know what the sequel could possibly be about. But I'm kind of intrigued. However, if it's going to be as graphic as this one, I definitely don't want to put myself through that. This has been on my shelf for a long time, so I'm glad that I read it, but it's not something that I would just go and pick up. If you like adult thrillers, this might be more up your alley. If you're okay with like erotica and stuff like that, you'd probably be fine with this book. I don't personally like reading that type of content, so that's why it just wasn't my fave. The next one is a middle grade, and it is Forget Me Not by Ellie Terry. I believe that this is a debut. I'm not sure. It just says that she's a poet, writer, and reader. And this is an own voices novel. The main character, Calliope, has Tourette syndrome, and the author does as well. This is basically about Calliope and her mom. They move from town to town every time her mom gets a new boyfriend. So Calliope's used to moving around. They haven't stayed in one place long enough to put down roots, and she's hoping that this move will be their last. So it's a really simple story. It was cute. It was sweet. The interesting thing about this is that it is told in dual perspectives. It's told from Callie's point of view as well as a boy in her apartment complex that she ends up befriending. His name is... it doesn't say. His name is Jinsong. I believe that they are Japanese, but I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. So Calliope's chapters are written in verse, and Jinsong's chapters are written in prose. So that was really cool to read those different styles. Like I said, it was a pretty simple story, but I'm glad that I read it. It was short, it was sweet, it was a quick read. I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't the best book that I've read either. Another middle grade I read in March was Stargazing by Jen Wang. This is one of the books that Alex sent me for my birthday, and this is just a really wonderful story about a budding friendship between Christine and her new neighbor, Moon. The artwork is super cute, super sweet. Moon is definitely a lot more outgoing and eccentric than Christine is. I loved all of the information about Chinese culture because they're part of the same Chinese American community. So there's talk about cuisine, traditions. Christine's mom hosts a Mandarin, I believe, class once a week. So Christine and some of the other kids from the community get to learn the language, which is really special. And Moon loves K-pop. So that's just a big bonus Jonas for this book. There is a lot about K-pop, which I adored. It made me think of my dear friend Caitlin and her absolute love of K-pop. So if you like K-pop, then you would probably enjoy this book because it's really cute. And the last book that I read in March is another debut middle grade book, and it is called What Stars Are Made Of. It's by Sarah Allen, and this was an ARC that Alex sent me, and it came out in March, so that is exciting. Let me see if I can find the date. It says it was on sale March 31st, so it just came out recently. This is another own voices story. The main character in this book has Turner syndrome, and so the author has Turner syndrome as well, and it's basically about this girl named Libby who enters a science contest with the hopes of using the prize money to help her sister and her sister's husband because they just found out that they were pregnant. and they're going through some financial things right now. So Libby really wants to help them. She cares about her family so much. It's about friendship and family. It's a really sweet story. I loved this book because it talked a lot about different women throughout science and history. So this is perfect for, you know, little budding feminists. Super cute. I adored the story. This is another one that I liked. It was really heartwarming, very endearing, but it's not the best one that I've ever read. So I think that I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars as well. So those are all of the books that I read for March. Let me know if you have read any of those books down below in the comments and what you thought of them. If you like this video, make sure to give it a big thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below to see more bookish videos. That's all I got for you guys today, and I will see you next time. Bye!